Hey guys, and welcome to another Interested Modeler. This is now part 2 of my Bandai BB8 build. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and pick up pretty much where I left off here, beginning work with this retractable tray. And this tray is going to contain the light switch, which is going to mount right about here. But the first thing I need to do is make it look a little more metallic, so I applied a flat black to begin with, and then we're going to go ahead and do what we did with the last piece that we did in the previous video, and that's apply this gunmetal color and then dry brush some of this silver color onto it. Now in regards to lighting, there's not a lot of room here, and it comes nicely molded with these two little protrusions that resemble little lights, and I think if I were to try to drill those out to accommodate some SMDs, I would really kind of mess it up. You know, it's right at the very corner, and I'm just not sure that would look good. I think there's enough room, however, to mount an SMD right here in the center, because that way we'll at least get a blue light glowing through here. The first step again is to go ahead and metalize it, so let's go ahead and proceed with that. Alright, well I have to say I'm pretty happy with the way this Vallejo paint's working out. In order to use this, however, you do have to thin the paint, and I use this thinner medium by Vallejo, and I apply about 10 to 12 drops to a small amount of the paint, and it just dilutes it enough to where I complete the process with this universal acrylic thinner by Testors. Now I've tried in the past by just applying just only this, and it doesn't seem to work out well enough. It comes out kind of clumpy, if you will, and it just clogs up your airbrush. So it definitely helps to use this thinner medium first before you complete the process with this stuff here. Alright, so before we dry brush the silver color, we're going to make this a little bit more grimy and darken it up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and use our Starship wash here. Alright, next thing I did was to drill some holes here for our push switch, which I got from modeltrainsoftware.com. They don't have to be very big holes, I just have to accommodate these thin wires. Then I'm going to go ahead and paint it and make it look a little more metallic here, just like I did with the rest of this. Alright guys, well I've decided to go ahead and leave off the blue SMD. As I mentioned before, I meant to mount it right here, but there's nothing there. This is actually just a joint of this piece here and this here, so it looks cleaner this way. And just settle on the fact that I can't really light this up. I will be lighting the opposite side. That'll be easy. The other thing to make note of, however, is that when you do mount your switch, you're going to have to make some accommodations here as you feed the wires through. You can't just let it sit on the seam, otherwise these two pieces will not sit together well. So I had to drill a couple more holes here and here, and made an allowance here and here where the seam comes together. And then this piece actually slides in from the back, and I just opened up a hole there to feed the wires through, and that way there'll be no interference as the tray comes in and out of BB8. And as for the other side of the panel here, across from it, I'm just using SMDs for that. Okay, and here we have the panel lit up. Unfortunately no lights on this side, but the tray works really well. Let me show you how it functions here. So there's a little mechanism that the door has right here that pulls the tray out as soon as you open the door, and the tray slides back and forth on this little track. So basically you just pull open a door and it pulls out the tray, and then you can just pull on it and then gain access to our switch. Alright, so here we now have our completed pieces, about ready to slide them on to our main support structure here. However, what I'm going to do, just so we don't end up short with any wires, we're trying to connect everything together, is I'm going to solder a little bit of extra wire to each of these here. The one thing that is something to keep in mind as you're putting together a model like this is that it requires, first of all, very little to no glue, and the reason is because you've got these areas that are specifically designed to join the pieces together, and once you slide them on, they are tight and very difficult to pry apart. So that's something to keep in mind as you're putting together the panels, because particularly one piece here when you slid them together, they were so tight here that they only went so far in, and so there was a little bit of a gap, and you can still see there's a little bit here where it's not quite 100% flush. I was able to apply enough pressure to finally get it very, very close, but it happened with this piece and one other panel as well. So you may want to do a little sanding where these pieces slide together, and that way you'll have a little bit more movement there. And even if they're a little loose, not a big deal. I would rather have had them a little loose and have to use some glue versus trying to pry them back apart once you have them together. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead now and, as I mentioned, solder some extra wire here, and we'll start assembling the main body. Okay, well, I had a bit of a mishap here, and this is what I get for not paying attention. This is the panel here that has this square piece here that needs to be illuminated, and I initially mounted a 3mm LED. So the LED was protruding here, and the wires ran through the back side. Unfortunately, where the wires were running through is this section here, and that's actually what needs to slide on here. So obviously, with the hot glue in place, it's not going to position properly, and I had to reconfigure it. So I tried a couple things, tried maybe running the wires through a different way, and that's why you see a few different holes here, and ultimately I just took it off and decided to try something else. So what I have on hand, and I've ordered this for another project, I didn't end up using it, was actually this here. This is actually what's called a Mega LED. It is from modeltrainsoftware.com. You want to think of it as like a supersized SMD. I mounted it onto a styrene piece of plastic, and you can see how flat it is. And it's just as bright as a 3mm LED. I'm going to mount it right here so that it's nice and flat, and then the wires will run through here. And that way we won't interfere with the top piece sliding into place. I tried mounting the 3mm LED from this side, but again, it's just too thick and interferes with this sliding properly onto its position there. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this up, and I'll show you when it's completed, and then we'll slide it into place. And just to show you before I put it together now, this is the LED in place. Let's go ahead and slide this piece on. Alright, you can see here, crisis averted. Thank goodness I had that extra LED on hand. And by the way, there's a plastic piece that actually will slide in here, so hopefully that'll make that look a bit better as well. Alright, let's continue to move forward. Okay guys, well I have the model temporarily inverted here just to show you how things are working out. We've got our light switch ready to go, temporarily hooked up to a power source here, so let me go ahead and flip on the light switch, and you can see the lights are on. So it looks like we're in business. Next step is to continue to work on hooking the wires together and then installing the white panels. Alright, so here the main body's put together. Next step will be to work on the head and of course the detailing. Alright, so my goal actually is to weather him, at least this kit, just like what we see on the studio model of BB8. Before I move on to the dome there, I'm going to go ahead and weather the main body. And as you can see, there's an accumulation of this brown color all along the seams. So I'm going to go ahead and mix some browns. We're going to apply just a general wash, and then we'll start applying some of this brown along the seams. To make it darker, we're going to probably use a little bit of the Tamiya kit and maybe some airbrushing. Okay, so the first thing I did was, as you saw, I just used a wet paper towel and just dabbed the mixture on there, and it's just really a mixture of this craft paint. It's just a brown paint I got from Michaels. I put a little bit of burnt umber in there and a very small drop of black, and I just mixed it up with just water and made a wash. And now that it's on there, we're going to take a wet towel now and just start cleaning some of this off. And the idea is to leave a sort of dirty look. And then we'll start leaving some of the darker areas around the seams. Alright, so I'm not sure you can tell in this lighting. It is a little darker in person than what you see here. But it's coming along pretty well. So this is our first light wash of the surface. And I think I'm pretty satisfied with the accumulation we have and on most of the panels here. So I think what I'm going to do now is work on these darker accents along the panels here and see if we can go ahead and use maybe some of the MIG ammo wash. Alright, so things are moving along here, and I think it's working real well with this ammo modern wash here to give us the look that we're after. So I'll continue moving along here, and next step will maybe be to add a little bit anyway, of the Tamiya weathering kit. Alright guys, here we now have the completed main body. So I finished everything off using the Tamiya Weathering Master B kit here, applying some of the brown pigment to enhance these areas all along the seam, and also to apply some light weathering. Let me just turn it around a little bit here just to give you guys a look at some of the other areas here. And overall, I'm very pleased with the end result. I sealed everything off with Krylon satin finish, which is a semi-gloss coat. Alright, well I'm going to go ahead and end this video here because it's getting a little long. We will complete the project in part 3 with assembling the head and adding the lights there and hooking everything together. And also going to assemble that little arm that sticks out as well. Alright, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me here on my YouTube channel or at interstellarmodeler@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you then in part 3. Take care.